A Villain in Venice, Jane of the Air, Book 1. A steampunk detective and aviatrix and part-time spy. Available now. All profits to the NHS.
Scanning for audio.
Hello, welcome to a Tin Dog podcast, talking about 73 yards. Number 4 in this season, whatever you want to call it. Is it season 14 or season 40? Or season 1 of Doctor Who? Or does anyone really care? Either way, it's Nshuti's first season. That's kinda cool. But we've got some elephants in the room we need to talk about in a minute. But first off, we need to talk about 73 yards. Not meters. No, 73 yards. And I know they're trying to sell this series to the Americans. But the Australians and the Canadians and the Brits already watched this series in English. And let's face it, if you look at the map of all the people in the world who still use Imperial, it's basically the United States of America. And that's it. There's not a lot of other people using Imperial measurements. So is it pandering, or is it something even more insidious, in a kind of a mustache-twirling conspiracy theory thing? We all know that certain members of certain political parties really want to return to good old-fashioned British imperial measurements. You will take my meters and centimetres from my cold, dead hands. We are a metric country, and I'll tell you one thing, Doctor Who was a metric show for the longest time. There's even examples on Big Finish of Jago and Lightfoot where the Doctor says, K9 reports something in meters, and Jago goes, what's a meter? And the Doctor just says, think in yards. And that's fine. But she's going around talking about feet and how tall the Doctor is, and feet and 5'10" and things like that, and there's a definite leaning, in fact almost exclusive use until Unit arrives, of just imperial measurements. Yes, a lesser person would find this fine, oh yeah, we're just pandering to the American audience, and that's fine because it's Disney money, and that's not a problem. Of course you could always go that it's 66.6 meters, the devil, oh yes. And that's what we're going with. Right, first off, chatting about the programme. We open with no music whatsoever. Cowards! You had a choice of 3 things. 1, no music. Number 2, stick with the music you've just got. Be proud of what you've got. Go with it. There's no way a Tom Baker episode would have existed without something. We're used to the cold open, but all of a sudden names started appearing at the bottom of the screen and you're like, what? Were you embarrassed by the music? Would the Doctor Who theme tune set up expectations in people's minds that were not paid off by the slightly spooky story? So, the third alternative would have been to produce a spooky version of the theme tune. Us fans would have gone wild. It would have annoyed certain people who were just coming to the show. Was that the Doctor Who theme tune? But it's not like you're watching it not knowing what you're going to watch. This is the world of streaming. You've gone to iPlayer, you've gone to Disney Plus to watch it because you know it's there. You're not going to come across it in passing. You're not going to hear the theme music from another room and come in running, which is what people used to do. No, it was a clarion call, and now it was just completely missing. This episode splits neatly into several sections. But basically, you've got spooky bit at the beginning, and in the second half, you've got a remake of the Stephen King story Dead Zone. If you're interested in Dead Zone, go away and watch the Walken and Sheen masterpiece, which I absolutely adore, and I own it on DVD. Yes, Viva la Original Plastic Productions. Anyway, I'm a big fan of the Dead Zone. I had it in a box set with Firestarter. Very 80s, but very marvellous. All about someone who has a slightly psychic event, develop powers of precognition in this case, but they discover that somebody is going to be president / prime minister, is going to launch nuclear weapons, and this person sets it up in their own head to stop them. There we go. That's that story. That's Dead Zone. That's not this particular story. So that's the second half, the half dealing with Mad Jack. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First off, I'm a bad fan. I should have checked what the translation of the pub name is. I'm sure when I get round to listening to any of the other plethora of podcasts and reviews, they'll have bothered their bums to try and find out what the name of the pub is. But, you know, I've not bothered, and I'm sorry. There's a lot of tricks used at the beginning. No, not the very beginning. Now this is the thing I need to discuss. This is the elephant in the room that I was talking about. Do you remember Turn Left? It's a great episode of Doctor Who. Blink, a great episode of Doctor Who. One of those things those two stories have in common is that they are primarily Doctor Light. The Doctor's not really in it very much. A motivating factor in a kind of a... it doesn't matter what it is, but basically the Doctor's absence defines the story. And that's what we've got here. Now, they're classic stories without the Doctor. Is this a classic story without the Doctor, or is this a good story because the Doctor's just not in it very much? Is that what makes it better? And I know that's sacrilege, but I also know from some of the comments people have been leaving that you're going to think that that's also true. So, getting away from the Rees-Mogg pounds and yards and anyway, moving on. So that's the one thing of this story. Is it better because the Doctor's not in it? Because the Doctor's been not greatly appreciated by us fans? We are waiting for us to be, yeah, he's the Doctor. And a lot of people have had that moment. They've all gone, yeah, he's the Doctor. He's my Doctor now. And perhaps he is. So, there's a lot of stuff going on that's a bit similar to, some people have said Inside Number 9, but I think it's more similar to Ghost Story, the way it's been shot and all sorts. And that's absolutely fine. But the important bit for this is the way that we've got classic performers like Sean turning up in the pub, and we've got atmosphere, the camera's going in, and I'm sure that woman was in an episode of Torchwood. Was it Countryside? And it's great, you know, and can you pay with a phone? And you know what? Are they backwards people? No, they're not. You just don't know what time period that Ruby arrived. This is a Ruby-centric episode to try and emphasize her as a person. And I get how important that is and how good and useful that could be for a show, especially when there's only, well, you know, 8 stories, and this is the halfway point. So, you've got your basic story of the woman trying to come to terms with this person, this other figure, and immediately my wife turned around and went, so is that just Ruby from the future then? Is that her mum? Is that her? What's going on? And that's basically where we all went. We all thought, okay, so that's just her but old. Oh, can they not get close enough because of the Blinovitch limitation effect? At which point everyone in the room just looked at me and went, what? And that was fine. But you're with me. I thought there was going to be a massive release of energy a la the Brigadier, and that might solve things, but no. Was she going to get closer as time went by and years went on? And that's the reason that the lady could touch her and become in the future. And we thought, oh, is that going to force her back through time? Me constantly trying to come up with scientific explanations for the storyline, which weren't there. Because, as Lethbridge Stewart says, yes, Kate turns up, thank God for Kate, no Osgood, still no Osgood, and they're going, right, you know what, we've had to deal with a lot more supernatural nonsense than usual. And I wonder if that's what's going on. Yeah, the supernatural nonsense. Yeah, well, that's what we've got going on here. Are you happy with the absence of the sci-fi aspects? And I know it was always science fantasy. It always was. And people out there are pointing out 100 examples of it all being like that before. But you know what? It's got to a point now where I think that he who waits who has no name is Rumple bloody Stiltskin. and could be. So, we've got that story, and we've got lots of tricks, lots of visual stuff. Like let's use the example of Ghost Stories. Now, Ghost Stories as a stage play is brilliant. Ghost Stories as a movie is very, very good, unless you've seen the stage play where you just go, well, the stage play is better. Go and watch the movie. What you've got is individual stories which then add up to a larger narrative and a bigger payoff. You need that bigger payoff in this storyline, and some things just aren't dealt with, they aren't talked about, they aren't sorted out. Look, what does the Doctor whisper to get rid of the Prime Minister? Doesn't she look old? It's clever. It's the sort of thing Russell's capable of giving us. The fact that this old lady turns up, and, alright, I'm watching it at Ultra HD, so my view's clearer than even units. But is she sign languaging something? Because that's what it looked like to me. And she keeps saying the same thing, don't break the circle. But it's already been broken. And is that, what is she saying to terrify people so much and make a daughter be hated by her own her own mum? We never find out. It's like the gold bar in Pulp Fiction. We never ever get to find out what it is. It's just a MacGuffin, a plot device, something that is terrifying, something so scary that the guy who isn't even human, this mad Jack, we've got stuff to deal with there, doesn't even leave, and it terrifies him so much, but we never find out what it is, and that is a bit annoying. Once we get to the full end of the story, and Ruby travels back in time, warns her the circle isn't broken, the Doctor reappears. Where does the Doctor go? Never dealt with. What's actually going on? Not dealt with, because it's all magic. And with magic, you don't actually have to fix anything, because you just go, oh, a wizard did it. Yeah, we've all been there, Lucy Lawless, we understand. So, here's the thing. Did it actually happen? The Doctor has a memory of this person, this Prime Minister, almost causing a world war. That's the only bit of information the Doctor gives, and Ruby has to sort that out. So, he's got a memory of it happening in his past. So when the Doctor is removed, is he removed from the entirety of reality? And then when he comes back, that existence happened because Mad Jack was then defeated. Or does it actually have happened and they still have to go off and then defeat him, Ruby and the Doctor? But Ruby doesn't have a memory of the things going on, so she'll have to have a completely different adventure. It's all bizarre, because if the Doctor has another memory of doing it and he wasn't removed from time, he would have been there in order to stop the explosions and the things in the first place, but of course that doesn't happen. This is the sort of thing that's kept me awake since I saw it yesterday, or this morning, or last night, or whenever it was I saw it. I need to not think about these things, but the logic is only explicable if you go, yeah, it was magic, fair enough. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Did I enjoy it and the Doctor wasn't in it? Yes. Am I worried that that's why? Perhaps I am. Perhaps I'm more worried about. But the aging stuff, the people are going to go on about comparing this with the girl who waited when she had proper aging makeup on, and then she was only 40 and she's 60 and it's 40 years later, and then she's old lady and then it's somebody else. At what point does Ruby learn the things that will terrify people? Because she just basically, and I'm going to use the rabbit ears, dies and then comes back as the person waving hands. Where does that extra energy come from to send her back in time? Or is it all just magic caused by a fairy ring? And that's fine. If it is from the fairy ring, let's go with it. Let's just accept it for what it is and move on. But I, for one, miss it just being a bit more sciencey. And I know that's the big aspect of this storyline. But if it does turn out to be Rumpelstiltskin, I will not be impressed. I'm going to go now and let other people ramble and rant and possibly leave comments. Remember, most of the stuff on YouTube has actually got video content and you can see me reviewing these things. But in order to get this out quickly, I've done it as audio only. So until next time, be seeing you.
That was the Tin Dog Podcast. Available on Spotify, iTunes, Acast, Stitcher, and wherever good podcasts are found. Get early access to content by subscribing to the Tin Dog Podcast YouTube channel. You can support the show at patreon.com/tindog. Contact the show on Twitter @TindogPodcast or email tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. All of the things discussed are the intellectual property of others. No infringement is intended. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.